everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about male gaze theory and this internalized male gaze discourse that's been going around on the internet for a while. I realize I'm a little bit late to the game. It was trending a few months ago, and then before that it was trending like a year or two ago. It seems to always come in waves, and every time this trend comes back it comes with more and more of a vengeance, with more and more paranoia attached to it. And so I decided to just kind of make this video airing my criticisms of this idea. Originally, I was going to save my thoughts on this topic matter for the next video I'm working on, which is going to be a much larger, all-encompassing video of my views on modern-day feminism and some criticisms I have of the movement and what I kind of feel about it. But instead of taking up too much time in that video, I decided to make this one a video of its own, and that way I could kind of flesh out and expand on it a little bit more than I would be able to in the next video. And so, of course, to begin the video, I need to start out with the definition of the male gaze. This originally was a concept in film theory. It was coined by Laura Mulvey, and I remember reading about this and learning about this in college in my film classes. And it basically refers to the way that in a lot of film, women are portrayed as sexual objects for the benefit of the male gaze, the male viewer, the male director, those kinds of things. And generally speaking, I think this is a really useful tool for analyzing media and film and all of that kind of thing. But where I start to take issue is the way that it's been portrayed online recently in terms of the internalized male gaze. The internalized male gaze is this idea that a lot of feminists online have been pushing, where everyone is oppressed by this male gaze and everyone has a small man inside of their brain judging them for how they look at all times, and that no matter what you do, you can never escape this invisible sort of oppression. And to read the Margaret Atwood quote from her fictional book, The Robber Bride, that everyone brings up in regards to this, the quote from that character states, "Even pretending you aren't catering to male fantasies is a male fantasy. Pretending you're unseen, pretending you have a life of your own, that you can wash your feet and comb your hair unconscious of the ever-present watcher peering through the keyhole in your own head if nowhere else. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur." And I have a lot of criticisms when it comes to this view and the fact that people are taking this quote so seriously, which is obviously what this entire video is going to be about. But I think the biggest thing that it makes me upset about this is just how paranoid of a belief this is. The idea that you can never escape the dreaded male gaze even when you're by yourself, that you will always just be in service to men, everything you do is to benefit men, you have literally no free will as a human, as a woman, as an agent. Not only do I think that this is untrue, I also think it's just a way to breed more paranoia and insecurity in yourself and to increase your own resentment towards men, who are literally not watching you or judging you when you're by yourself. I do think it's normal, however, to view yourself from an outside perspective from time to time, whether it's thinking about how you present yourself to men or to women or to a job interviewer, or what it would be like if you had an audience watching you. Like, people do look at themselves from a sort of third-party lens, you know, whether it's so they know what kind of fashion they want to wear or like how to do their makeup. Like, people do think about how they present to other people naturally because we're social creatures. And maybe the reason that this is trending now all of a sudden is due to social media, as everything is, because I think the fact that people are online all the time and thinking about their image on social media and what kind of like likes or responses it could get and so on, I think people are more prone to looking at themselves from an objective or third-party view more so than they would otherwise. And I don't think that this is just because of the male gaze. And then the next thing I want to mention, for some reason this has been left out of every single video that I have watched on this topic, when it's honestly the most obvious in my opinion, which is that it's completely natural to want to look attractive to the sex that you're attracted to. This is literally the most natural thing you could do as a human animal. We literally all exist on this planet because of sex, and what precedes most sexual interactions is attraction, and it makes sense to want to be attractive to the people who you want to sleep with. And the reason I think so many women feel shameful about this, they feel bad about the fact that they want to be attractive to men, even though it's literally normal, is because a lot of this mainstream feminist movement is trying to make women feel empowered, completely disconnected from the opposite sex, like as if they can exist in some vacuum where it's only women and men have no influence on you, whether it's a patriarchy or a matriarchy or an equal society or whatever, which I think is just impossible. Like, unless you are like a lesbian separatist or whatever, which is a legitimate thing back in the day, men and women will always coexist, and it makes sense to care about what literally half of the population thinks about you. But a lot of feminists have ingrained this belief in people, or this idea in people, that if you do anything that could ever benefit a man in any way, or could ever, you know, contribute to a healthy relationship between men and women in any way, this is bad and shameful, and it's because you're oppressed and because you are only a victim of the patriarchy and you have no agency of your own. And this is what leads to a lot of paranoia in the terms of, do you wear makeup for yourself or do you wear makeup for other men? Same with fashion, beauty, and so on, which is a debate that's been going on forever. I think this most notably began at the end of the second wave of the feminist sex wars, where they were debating whether or not pornography pornography is oppressive to women and whether or not women should be allowed to partake in it, and if adhering to a beauty standard is oppressive to all women, and are you setting women back if you like to wear high heels, these kinds of debates. But we see this going on all the time now in the modern feminist movement in terms of debates around should women wear makeup, and is it okay to wear makeup if it's for yourself and your own artistic expression, or is it really just for men and the patriarchy and it's just oppressive, like these kinds of ideas. And the first inspiration for me to make this video actually occurred nearly a year ago, where a YouTuber who I was watching was talking about this male gaze theory and the internalized male gaze theory on her channel. And she was talking about how she doesn't really believe this theory, but maybe that's just because she's afraid that if it's true, it will, change her whole world and will be so painful. Because unfortunately for her, I guess she's had very traumatic experiences with men and hasn't had any good relationships and so on. And she's also a beautician, and so she was saying that, she gets a lot of joy from doing hair and makeup and doing that for other women and so on. And that if it turns out that this is all just for the benefit of men and she's really just doing it because she has the internalized male gaze, that this would be horrible for her. And obviously there's some deeper mental issues there. I don't say that to be mean. I just mean like genuinely, I'm sorry that you've had bad relationships with men and so on. And yeah, I'm sorry that it's coloring your view of your own autonomy. But when I saw that video, that's when I was like, wow, this male gaze shit has gone way too far. Like this is the definition of paranoid and delusional thinking. Like this is crazy. And later on in this video, I'm going to be talking about how the male gaze isn't even fully real. Like people of both sexes and all sexualities appreciate femininity and masculinity and so on. But for the sake of this argument, I want to emphasize that personally, I don't think it matters if you want to look good for yourself or for other people or for men or to be attractive to men. Like literally, as long as you're not hurting anybody and it's giving you joy, it literally does not matter. Like there is nothing morally wrong with wanting to be attractive, and there's nothing morally wrong, like literally, with wanting to be in a relationship. Like I just don't understand. I don't like that political values and moral values have to be attached to every single way that you live your life, every single way that you present yourself. But there are definitely feminists out there who believe that, for instance, shaving your body hair or wearing a dress is oppressive to women, and that you're holding women back, and that you're only doing it because like you're licking the boot of the patriarchy and so on. Which unfortunately is kind of something that I used to believe, and that's why I'm going to be talking about this right now in this section called the internalized feminist gaze. And so to give you a story of how I internalized the feminist gaze, basically when I was a teenager, there was a period of my time where I was gaining weight very rapidly as a result of an eating disorder. I literally went from underweight to overweight in the span of 3 months, and it was extremely difficult for me, which I know, first world problems, but it was very emotionally challenging. And basically as a result, I had very low self-worth and self-esteem, and I was extremely insecure. I also felt like I would never be pretty or attractive, and so I just felt really jealous and insecure of women who were pretty and attractive. And the way that I decided to combat this was literally by shaving my head. I've shaved my head multiple times. I've had the full Britney Spears breakdown moment. And I also dressed very masculine, which honestly was not that big of a deal because I was dating a woman at the time. So I didn't really feel the need to be attractive to men in any way because I wasn't trying to attract a man. But the girl who I was dating at the time was a feminist, and I wasn't, but because I wanted her to like me, and because obviously when you're in a relationship, you're interested in what the other person is interested in, I did a lot of reading about feminism and so on, and the whole ideology and everything, and I started to believe that there was no logical or justifiable reason to shave your body hair. And so I started growing out my body hair because I felt like I would be a bad feminist if I didn't, even though I didn't like the way that it looked, and I didn't like the way that it felt, and it's just not something that I enjoy personally. But I didn't want to contribute to oppressive notions of femininity or whatever, and I didn't want to be seen as a bad feminist, and I didn't want to be taken less seriously, for instance, if I looked more feminine, because I know that there's a stereotype that women aren't, smart. But basically I was trapped by this paranoid thinking of being afraid of what feminists would think of me, and this obviously just has to do, I think, a lot with being young. I think most people can relate to being very insecure as an adolescent and wanting to fit in either with a certain group of people, whether you're an emo or a scene kid, or wanting to be attractive to the opposite sex if you're trying to be in a relationship for the first time and so on. It's normal to care very immensely of what other people think of you rather than doing what you personally enjoy and expressing yourself in the way that you like to express yourself. And so that was my main issue, but I was just more paranoid about the feminist gaze than the male gaze, like a lot of people online seem to be. But now, of course, that I've moved past that, I literally started wearing makeup while I was doing my van life journey, completely by myself. So it was obviously not for the benefit of men, not like it matters. If it is, who cares? But the real issue with this, naturally, is that I was attaching a moral value to the way that I look and a political value to the way that I look, and it's honestly just not that deep. It doesn't matter what you look like as long as you're comfortable with it, honestly. Like, it's literally your body, like, who cares? But I was so afraid of what other people thought of me, and honestly, I was also using trying to look quote-unquote unattractive as a defense mechanism because I was very insecure, that I tried to please other people in the most contradictory ways, and that's always just a recipe for disaster. Honestly, it's like, everyone has to learn this lesson, I think. Like, trying to impress other people in ways that don't feel true to yourself always just ends badly. And honestly, I'm sorry, but it really doesn't matter if you shave your body hair or not, or if you have a shaved head or not. Like, it just doesn't matter. And there are so many feminists out there who will try to make you feel like you're a bad person if you don't, adhere to the feminist beauty standard and you want to adhere instead to a more normal or male gazy beauty standard. And that's just ridiculous. You should just dress however you like and what makes you feel good. And so now that I talked about this internalized feminist gaze, I want to talk more about the male gaze, of course, and more specifically, whether or not the male gaze is even real. Again, this is the kind of thing that happens with this paranoid thinking, is you don't even know if it's real or not, because it's such an abstract thing that you're supposed to be afraid of, which is why I think for so many people, they are afraid of this kind of thing. But what I mean by the male gaze isn't real is that, of course, there is a general type of woman that most straight men are attracted to. Most straight men are attracted to femininity in the same way that most straight women are attracted to masculinity. But of course, there are always outliers, and something that always gets left out of this conversation for some reason is lipstick lesbians, which, if you don't know what a lipstick lesbian is, she's a very high feminine, stereotypical male gazy woman who's a lesbian. And naturally, a lipstick lesbian doesn't really care what men think of them in the sexual marketplace. They're literally trying to attract women, or, expressing themselves, and women being attracted to them is just a byproduct. Not just men are attracted to femininity. I'm attracted to femininity, and I'm not a man. And then, of course, there are butch lesbians as well, and they're not adhering to the male gaze. They are doing what pretty much everyone does, which is trying to look attractive to the sex that you're attracted to. Unless you're literally asexual, then you are a sexual person. Like, you want people to find you attractive. That is, like, literally so normal. But even when you take the sexuality thing out of it, people have been enjoying women's bodies and women's appearances forever, including straight women. Think about how many women you know who have paintings of naked women in their house, or statues of naked women, or look at models on their Instagram page, or who paint or draw images of beautiful women. Like, it's literally so normal, even if you're straight, to be appreciative of beauty and of femininity and of, like, natural feminine essence, or whatever you want to call it. And same to a degree, maybe not as large of a degree, but with masculinity. Think about the statue of David. Think about bodybuilding competitions. Like, people just like aesthetic beauty, whether it's feminine or masculine. This is like just a normal aesthetic thing that everybody experiences. But this last criticism I want to get into in this theory is actually my biggest criticism, or at least it's the one that gets under my skin the most. And that's when people politicize the male gaze theory in order to try and silence dissenting political opinions from their own. The video that really brought me over the edge into making this video was a video essay by a man talking about how the right wing, utilizes women or something for their cause. And basically, he calls out a bunch of commentary channels that are conservative channels run by women, saying that the only reason a woman would be a conservative is to appeal to men and to make men like them, which I try to think of myself as someone who's not that easily offended, but like literally I thought that was so offensive and sexist to just assume that if someone thinks differently from you, it's because they're just a woman who is so incapable of thinking that she's only believing what she believes for the benefit of men and for men to like her. Like, I think that's so fucked up. Do you really think that everyone thinks exactly the same by the virtue of what sex they are or what gender they are? Like really? It reminds me so much of the Oreo debate that has been going on forever, like not just on the internet, even though it's been trending, but like forever, where black people will accuse other black people of acting white or being an Oreo if they don't act in a stereotypical black manner. And it's like people who make these accusations saying that if you're a conservative, it's because you're abiding by the male gaze and you're only doing it for men. Or if you're a black person who say likes, punk music, it's because you're acting white and you just want white people to like you. I just don't understand how people think that by virtue of your skin color or your gender, that you will just automatically believe the same things. Like, how stereotypical and like racist and sexist and ignorant do you have to be to believe that? And it's not just men who have utilized this male gaze theory against women either, it's other women. One of the other big trends in modern day feminism is talking about not like the other girls or pick-me girls, which are basically women who put down stereotypically girly women to try to gain attraction from men. And this is a real thing that most girls have experienced growing up. There are always really insecure women who try to put down others to feel better about themselves and hopefully to find an insecure man who will like them for it. But this is just another topic that's gone way too far now, because now it's used to shame any woman who has a masculine interest For instance, if you like video games or heavy metal or anything like that, people will accuse you of being not like the other girls or that you're only doing it so men will like you. But I've seen a lot of women, especially feminists, utilize this to attack people who think differently for them in the same way that that guy did. Where if you have a criticism of feminism, or if you don't identify as a feminist, or if you're a conservative in any way, or in some instances just based on the way you dress and your interests, people will accuse you of only doing that to please men. Because for whatever reason, people can't get past the fact that other people can think differently from them for valid reasons. Just because something believes something differently from you doesn't mean that they're wrong. They probably have their reasons for doing so, and those reasons, especially when it's something as major as your political beliefs, are probably for reasons much deeper than wanting to be attractive to the opposite sex. It's just so essentialist and like dumbed down, and it just bothers me. Just because a woman doesn't believe the same things that you do doesn't mean she's only doing it for male approval. She most likely has her reasons for doing so, and maybe if you listen to her explain herself, you would understand the reasons why. But I think it's very interesting how a lot of modern feminists want to shame and control women while simultaneously claiming that women are controlled and shamed by the patriarchy. Like, these women claim to be against the patriarchy, but they literally just want to control women in the same way that the alleged patriarchy does. It's the classic tale of the oppressed becoming the oppressors. But I'm going to talk about that in much more detail in my next video, which is going to be much more, informative than this one. So if you are new here and you're not subscribed and you do want to hear my longer thoughts about feminism and so on, you should definitely hit the subscribe button. You could always unsubscribe at any time. And if you like this video in any way, give it a thumbs up. Do you think this, male gaze theory is real? If so, what is your experience with it? I'd be interested to hear down in the comments. I'm not going to judge you. But that's all I have to say for this video. Thank you for tuning in. And if you're subscribed to me, that means I will see you guys next time. Bye.